Today, we honor the life, the legacy, and the unforgettable music of Rick Derringer, a name forever etched in the annals of American rock and roll. Born Richard Dean Zeringer, Rick Derringer wasn't just a guitarist. He was a force of nature, an artist whose sound transcended generations, whose energy shook arenas, and whose soul spoke through every note he played. His passing marks the end of an era, and his funeral, scheduled for later this week, will be a private ceremony attended by those who knew and loved him best: his family, close friends, and longtime collaborators. Although the service itself will be closed to the public, the world will be watching, remembering, and mourning, because Rick's influence was far too vast to be contained within one room. Fans from across the globe continue to celebrate his legacy, sharing memories, spinning records, and posting heartfelt tributes online. From classic rock stations to streaming playlists, his music roars louder than ever. Rick's story began humbly in Fort Recovery, Ohio, where he was born on August 5, 1947. By his teens, he was already making waves. At just 17 years old, he led the McCoys to chart-topping success, with the 1965 smash hit "Hang On Sloopy" knocking the Beatles' "Yesterday" out of the #1 spot on the Billboard charts. That moment marked the beginning of a storied journey, one that would take him from high school gyms to stadium stages. But Rick Derringer didn't stop there. Through the 1970s and beyond, his solo work, especially the iconic rock and roll "Hoochie Coo," would become a defining anthem of the era. Gritty, powerful, and unrelenting, the song embodied the rebellious spirit of rock music and became a staple on airwaves, soundtracks, and setlists around the world. He worked alongside some of rock's most legendary names: Johnny and Edgar Winter, Steely Dan, Alice Cooper, Cyndi Lauper, Kiss, and even Ringo Starr. Not just as a performer, but as a producer, a studio wizard, and a trusted creative force. His versatility was unmatched. Whether playing blues, hard rock, or pop, Derringer's guitar always told the truth: raw, real, and electric. But beyond the flashing lights of the stage, Rick was a husband, a father, a friend. He later embraced Christianity, found peace in his faith, and dedicated his time to producing Christian music alongside his wife, Jenda Derringer. Together, they traveled, performed, and shared their beliefs through both words and melodies. His later years reflected a man who had walked through the storms of life and come out with a deeper sense of purpose and grace. In interviews, Rick often spoke about reinvention, about how music wasn't just something you play, but something that transforms you. And indeed, he lived many musical lives. As a teen idol, a rock renegade, a studio sage, and finally, a spiritual artist on a more personal path. The announcement of his passing has sparked a wave of emotional tributes. Fellow musicians, producers, fans, and radio hosts have shared stories of his generosity, his genius, and his humor. He was known not only for his technical brilliance, but also for his humility, a man who never let fame get in the way of authenticity. His family has released a short statement, thanking fans for the overwhelming love and support in this difficult time. They ask that, in lieu of flowers, supporters continue to share his music and keep his spirit alive through the power of song. And what a spirit it was. Rick Derringer's influence is woven into the fabric of modern rock. His riffs have been sampled, covered, and studied by aspiring musicians for decades. His energy is forever frozen in countless live performances and recordings. And his lyrics, raw, rebellious, unapologetically loud, still echo in stadiums, headphones, and hearts. As we prepare to lay this musical titan to rest, we also reflect on a life that was lived in full volume. A life of passion, precision, and profound impact. A life that lit up stages and left permanent fingerprints on the fretboards of history. From Ohio to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame circuit, from the rebellious roar of the 70s to the quiet grace of spiritual songs, Rick Derringer lived many lifetimes in one. And now, as we prepare to say goodbye, we don't just mourn a man, we celebrate a legacy. A legacy that won't fade, a sound that won't be silenced, and a name that will forever belong to the pantheon of greats. Rest in peace, Rick Derringer. Thank you for the music, thank you for the fire, and may your eternal stage shine as brightly as the one you rocked here on Earth. As we pause to reflect on the extraordinary life of Rick Derringer, we realize that his story is not just the tale of a rock star. It's the journey of a man who never stopped evolving, never stopped creating, and never stopped believing in the power of music to move the human spirit. From the moment he first stepped on stage as a teenager with the McCoys, to his final years sharing his faith and producing music that reflected his spiritual transformation, Rick embodied the rare kind of artist who lived each phase of life with intention, courage, and vulnerability. He wore many hats: guitarist, songwriter, producer, mentor, husband, father, and believer. And in each role, he left something meaningful behind. He showed us that reinvention isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That aging isn't a decline, but a deepening. And that real greatness isn't in how loudly you play, but in how deeply you connect with your audience, your family, and your calling. His life was not without hardship, nor without controversy, but it was always genuine, always marked by the raw honesty that his guitar so often voiced. For every fan who heard him play live, for every young musician who learned one of his solos note for note, for every friend or family member who sat with him in quiet moments away from the spotlight, Rick left a lasting imprint. He gave us moments of joy, rebellion, introspection, and healing. He was proof that rock and roll could be loud and soulful, wild and thoughtful, reckless and redemptive all at once. And in a world where so many artists come and go, Rick Derringer stayed relevant, stayed true, stayed human.